Thanks for allowing me the privilege to share this morning with you and to share this celebratory time out here with you. I appreciate it so very much, and we appreciate it so very much. A couple was touring the Capitol in Washington, and the guide pointed to a tall, benevolent gentleman. And as the congressional chaplain, and the lady said, well, what does the chaplain do? And does he pray for the Senate or the House? The guide, with the deepest reservation, gave out a big sigh. No, he gets up, looks at Congress, and then prays for the country. Now, those of you who practice prayer might want to join that effort. How many practiced observation of Christ's birthday, and how few his precepts? Oh, it is easier to keep holidays than commandments. That's from Ben Franklin. One of my mother's favorite authors, New Thought authors, is, or was, Charles Roth. And he wrote this: all life is one. We are but a vocalizing point of expression of that one universe. Ponder that just for a moment. All life is one. A belief I think is pretty much accepted out here, right? No? Well, if so, how did so many people get it all mixed up? You might be wondering that. I often do. Well, it didn't start with what we would today call any kind of logic. According to research, humans, that's us, are naturally wired for various life events. Good to know. The human brain hardwiring controls all aspects of our bodily functions and interprets the world around us through our senses. I'm smiling right now because I just heard a little zip zip, and I remember the last time I was here, we had a beep beep beep, and it was because I didn't turn off my alarm, so it made me smile that I did it right this time. Eric Patenka from the University of Texas Austin writes this: like all animals, humans have instincts, genetically hardwired behaviors that enhance our ability to cope with vital environmental contingencies. And then Dr. Rick Hansen says that our brains are wired to take in the bad, think about that, and ignore the good. That's why it's easier to ruminate over bad things than to bask in the pleasure of the good things in life. Those of us with children know that, don't we? Wow. And this is known as negativity bias. But on the other hand, there is hope. Our brain hardwiring also includes caring for others, even when it may seem like too much to ask. And just from listening today and the times I've been here, you guys really know about that part of the hardwiring of the brain. And then finally, there's a pattern recognition. The human brain is wired to find patterns, even when none exist, leading to symbolic association between events, like sacrificing leading to rainfall, like evil and the burning of humans. Those are just a couple of examples of creating patterns when there really aren't any. See, our brains are wired with not only the need, but with the wonderful ability to make sense of even the nonsensical. November 5th. Early humans lived in a world full of mysteries that could not scientifically be explained. Simple events like the cycle of day and night, the seasons changing, weather phenomena, none of that was explainable. Their observations of these cycles of nature played a foundational role in shaping their beliefs. Beliefs that led to the creation of gods, or at a minimum, supernatural human beings to explain these events. along with a platform for the development of superstitions. Superstitions that stand in place of what we would call science. Experiencing the sky, the sun leaving the sky each day, near the same time, experiencing rain seemingly coming from nowhere. If we had a time machine and could travel back just as observers to watch the reaction of our early human ancestors, their first rain experience, can you imagine them standing there and the rain coming down and they look up and the rain is hitting them in the face and they don't know what's happening? Wow. The first time it was summer and then it became winter. The first time the sun disappeared from their sky. Their pattern recognition wiring would just about force them to connect a reason with these actions. And most importantly, that reason would be connected to something outside of them, something that was making it happen, something beyond, something maybe even superior to themselves. Their conclusion might be something that would not necessarily stand up against what we call scientific scrutiny, but become instead fertile soil for creating those superstitions around the misunderstandings of where the rain came from and day to night, along with so many other natural phenomena. These early non-verbal humans had quite a bit to deal with. Life patterns, recognition, the hardwiring need for control and meaning does not require a scientific foundation to function. How do we stop the dangerous nights from coming? How do we stop the rain from drenching us? But the days always returned and the rain eventually stopped. Put yourself back there with them, going through this for the first time. If you had children or if you have children and they were little and they didn't grow up in snow, you might have brought them from another place or moved from another place and they saw snow for the first time. You can kind of imagine the excitement they had and the fear that our ancestors had. Observations without scientific interpretation supported early humans' misunderstanding and opened a portal for early humans to personify a higher power responsible for the rain, another one responsible for the sun disappearing, and another one, still another one, for the sun coming back. After all these basic events, they were at awe of them. What was happening? How could it be? It's not me, it must be something else. Human hardwiring, a divine survival tool, included in our creation with aspects like pattern recognition, a negativity bias, learning the need for control and meaning. With the non-existence of scientific scrutiny, the human's creation of superstitions led to personification. The human brain's hardwiring supported the personification of natural forces, creating an illusion of making the results personal. And those results, it seemed that we could, or they could, some of us still do, but not in this room, I know. We could, these forces were amenable to rituals and sacrifices and prayers. Humans developed patterns to interact with these forces out here, these entities out here, and thought that they could influence their behavior. Things like sun gods and goddesses rose nearly in every culture. Observation of the heavens led to worship of the stars and planets as divine manifestations or cosmic forces. Priests and shamans often linked celestial phenomena like eclipse or the solstice to divine action, further embedding the idea of gods controlling natural occurrences. Fortunately, our ministers have come such a long way. Some of us. which brings us to the interior of the initial core focus of the teachings of many of the master spiritual teachers. A core focus we can also find in the secular realm. That core focus being the belief in a single source for all humanity. From a secular point of view, the idea of a singular source for all humanity is often grounded in scientific and philosophical principles such as humanity's common ancestral traced through evolutionary biology. The elements that our bodies, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, originated in the stars, often capitalized as the phrase, "We are all stardust." Have you ever heard that? We are all stardust. Yeah, that's that oneness again, creeping in, and we didn't even know it. And secular humanist holds a perspective that sees one source as the shared capacity for reason, empathy, and connection. All three are aspects of the brain's hardwiring system inherent in all human beings. Sometimes we wonder. As we move past the orthodox religious perspectives that seem to emphasize more of a theological or spiritual born in sin type of separation of humanity from its creator, an idea supported through many of its doctrines and rituals and beliefs, we get back to we get back into our time machine and travel back to observe the teachings from the founders or the originators of the various religions before what I call the Orthodox age. Most of them taught human oneness and humanity's fundamental interconnection through the context of their culture. So Jesus taught like Jesus, Muhammad taught like Muhammad, the Buddhists taught like their culture. Their teachings focus more on the sense of separation due to ignorance, sin, or ego, rather than the concept of being born in sin, with the task of getting back to that which never existed because you were born in sin. So you couldn't get back to God because you were born in sin. That was a hard one. But let's get back to the pre-Orthodox period and a brief overview of what history tells some of those founders taught, such as humans are one with Brahma, which is Hinduism. That's the ultimate reality. And in Buddhism, humans are not separate from the universal principle. Jesus taught that humans are intimately connected to God, referring to his own relationship as one with the Father. Allah is closer to humans than their jugular vein. And in the Tao Lasu, humans are inherently one with the Tao, the eternal source and flow of the universe. We could go on and on and on, and remember, 77 pages. I could keep this going. I really could. But it seems that the pre-Orthodox period of the spiritual teachings by the founder was less about negative bias than about oneness, about the brain's wiring to be one, to be connected, to be caring, to be sharing. Well, as I move on to the end of this, I'm going to ask the question. I'm looking at quite a few of you. I know some of you probably watched this, but some years ago there was a TV series called The Highlander. Does anyone remember The Highlander? I see some heads shaking. They don't want to raise their hand like, I'm not going to raise my hand. I remember. I was a rather avid watcher, and I believe it came on for me Saturday nights. Yeah, and so I would make time to make sure I watched it. But just for a recap, for those of you who didn't watch it, There was an immortal named Duncan MacLeod, and almost every week he fought another immortal, sometimes winning, and sometimes they fought to fight another day. They lived. As they knew they would have to eventually fight again because what? In the end, there could only be one. Thank you for that. Now, this was before I was involved at all in any kind of structured new thought or spiritual metaphysics. And it was entertainment for me, with a meaning that I really did not give a lot of thought to. It was just joyful to watch them, you know. I just loved it, I guess. But thinking back now, as this talk developed, I realized that it could be interpreted metaphysically. Duncan, like each of us, had the task of slaying those who would take his life to absorb his immortal or eternal power. His adversaries were other immortals. It differs a little bit in our case, in which requires the slaying, or at a minimum, a release. They're not really other people, although there are times, at least, we like to release some of the people in our lives. That's just me, right? Okay. I'm getting there, Universal Unitarians. I'm getting there. But I digress. Our task really is slaying or releasing the power-robbing thoughts and feelings that would inhibit our ultimate reprogramming, or at a minimum, reduce the influence of the wiring that supports racism, otherism, superiority, greed. And those are just a few of the incorrect assumptions, poorly focused, non-scientific, non-reality-based, pattern-making, hardwiring things that have happened in many lives. And that's a path that's capable of robbing us from the full embrace, the full privilege of conscious life experience of being a focalized point of expression of the one universe. A oneness that is and has always existed, which can bring many of us, like the fictional character, the Highlander, into the oneness. But our challenge is the thoughts and feelings that we carry that can guide our life force into a non-desired direction. I want to stop here just for a moment as we go into a new year and as we go into the holiday season, and just ponder for a moment to yourselves, what thoughts, what feelings can I let go of that have not served me well? Just a moment. Just one thought, one feeling that has not served me well. Yes. Yes. Knowing that the hard wiring there has grabbed hold of it and is playing it out, but you can change it. You can let it go. You see, like the Highlander, it doesn't matter how those thoughts and feelings came into existence. It could be our parents, it could be our teachers, it could be the preachers, it could be society, or it could be our own misunderstood life experiences. But know that in the end, there can only be one. Our congruent, governing thought and feeling unit working together to move us into a conscious union with the truth of the existence of an unbreakable bond each other has with each other and with the source of us. Because again, at the end, there can only be one. I bid you happy holidays, and I bid you namaste. Thank you.
Visit us at uusg.org.